Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat siang. A very good afternoon to you all. I hope you had a good break. Welcome back to the fifth International Workshop on Big Data and Information Security. So I'm your host, Pancha Hariputra. Special welcome to all keynote speakers in this session. Dr. Hamam Riza, Head of Agency of the Assessment and Application of Technology, or the PPPT. With that said, we'd like to invite Professor Yudo to introduce our first keynote speaker and moderate discussion in the following talk. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Yudo Girisucayo.
Thank you very much, Pancha. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. From location Jogja near the Merapi Mountain, let me moderate this session. I would like to introduce our brother Hamam Riza, Dr. Hamam Riza. He is the head of the Agency for the Assessment and Application of Technology, which is also called BPPT. We are so proud of him. He has so many contributions to this country. If you search through Google Scholar or Scopus, then you will see such a long history of his research on artificial intelligence, especially on linguistic, before he becoming the head of the agency. So there are so many inventions of BPPT, of the agency under his leadership, from the National Strategy of Artificial Intelligence, which I'm sure that he will talk about that later, the electric vehicle charging station, and also the lab for the COVID-19. So it's such, seems that BPPT just wake up from such a long sleep under his leadership. So we are so proud to have Dr. Hamam Riza here. Dr. Hamam Riza, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Yudo Girisucayo, a very close friend, and I'm very proud of him as well. He's also the chairman of the Indonesian registry for domain name. So thank you very much. I'm really honored this afternoon. A very good afternoon to everybody. Stay healthy and happy to everyone. I would like to say and say hello to Pak Amarullah Octavian, Rector of Unhan, which is going to be one of the keynote speaker here. Also, my brother, Professor Zainal Hasibuan, which we will see him shortly, I guess. Thank you to Pak Chris from Polytechnic Sandi Negara, which is here, and also Professor Wisnu, as well all the other plenary speakers and probably people joining from all over the world for this extraordinary event of IWBIS 2020, which is really a great opportunity for University of Pertahanan, University of Indonesia, especially the Faculty of Computer Science, were able to organize such very important workshop. So I would like to share with all of you related to big data and AI research collaboration as part of the National Priority Program. And certainly this discussion, this talk will not really trying to stage all the results that, but certainly more into history in the making for big data and AI in Indonesia especially. So everybody can join and collaborate with each other, all the stakeholders of big data and AI research, in order for us to really foster this area in making sure. So let me really start with a very simple introduction. The development of big data, as you know, and again, the Internet of Things is really rapidly accelerating and affecting all our areas of technologies and businesses, by increasing the benefits for most of the organization, the government, even the individual benefit from big data. If we can witness the development of the population database since a decade ago, I can say, because it is all started in 2009. Now, all this population database are becoming a really master data for all of our Indonesian citizens, reaching up to 270 million. Yeah, and the growth of this data is produced by many means. Key element that has played a major role on the big data landscape, especially in Indonesia, if we are talking about big data for this citizen database. One report says the Indonesian government manage around 100 trillion byte, that is 125 petabyte, and I think in the last report that I see from the association, Internet Association, they say the internet protocol is penetration, yeah, to people for the past 3 years has been like 60%, something like that. Yeah, I guess that was in 2018, and even McKinsey have said that we have reached around 448 petabytes in 2015. Yeah, so it's really exploding of big data. And I think I should, sorry, I have not slideshow my slide here. So, and as you know that this big data is can be categorized, yeah, according to 3 aspects or 4 aspects. It depends on how you see it, you know. A technology that that really will take the stage of the conventional database technology, trying to gather volume, velocity, variety, and certainly veracity. I think on most of the cases, veracity is really important. It's also important because it talks about data accuracy when there are certain data about it, about a specific field. So data in the digital age, yeah, data in the digital age, we can see the volume growing by a factor of 44 times increases from about 10 years. This has been reported that we are now talking about zettabytes of data, which is really a showcase that the data is exploding. And even more in the social media, we can witness so many data is flowing. I mean, you can see the tweets, you can see the Instagram, you can see emails, you can see videos, and many other data. And it is an overwhelming world. Yeah, when you combine all the penetration of the internet, the social media, and the data that is produced by its users. So this is also some statistics regarding how we, as a producer, not only consumer of data, but a producer of data in mobile apps, in social media, and chatting application, are becoming, you know, the new paradigm for all of us, especially if we are thinking about going over this pandemic COVID-19, where we created even more data in our everyday life, in our less contact society. Yeah. So all in all, it gives us a challenge, actually, whether we can do innovation in order for us to be able to take the benefit of this data, as we are producer of this data. Social media and networks, all of us are generating data. Scientific instrument, all the sensors, IoT, and many other things in the sensor networks, all means data to us. All the mobile device, all the tracking device, all the camera, and many other things, devices, is the source of this data, the root of this data. So innovation is determined by the ability to manage, analyze, summarize, visualize this data. And we try to discover the knowledge and the meaning in timely manner, so that we can make a better decision, we can make a better analysis, we can do better in all aspect of our lives. Yeah. So this is what really we are talking about when we see and we want to reap the benefit of big data. Government initiative by many of the country in the world are taking this data into administration. Even now, Indonesia is really trying to fight the COVID-19 with to get the accuracy of this data in terms of healthcare. The Ministry of Finance, especially the Director General of Taxation, is also in the making of the new tax commercially off-the-shelf package that are going to be deployed, and trying to increase the success of tax collection in Indonesia. Also, we can witness also private sector and many scientific work are being done by people with the with putting the big data as their main pillar, in order to get, for example, in bioinformatics, drug discovery and vaccine discovery for COVID-19 are driven by the ability to map out the human genome, the DNA, the RNA of this virus, COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2. Yeah. And so we can really see that all of the sectors, whether it is government, academic, private sector, enterprises, are now putting emphasis on to be able to make use of the data collection to bring knowledge, the new knowledge, and then make a better decision. So this is why I am trying to gather everyone actually into an innovation ecosystem, especially in the National Priority Research Program, where we have known that there are 12 areas where the National Priority Research endorsed by the Ministry of Research and Technology, the Agency for Research and Innovation, the National Agency for Research Innovation, or BRIN, yeah, to put this priority research program into a practical use of many of our research program, industry innovation, as well as bureaucracy reform in the government. Yeah, and we need to work this all together as an ecosystem, so that, for example, in this national strategy of artificial intelligence, which was declared, I would say, or launched last August by the Minister of Research and Technology and also the Vice President. We employ all the stakeholders, whether it is academic, business, government, community, yeah, association, as even media are part of our national working group, which resulted in the recommendation of 5 priority sectors in our national development. I'm sorry, some of these slides are in Indonesia, but I can really say that we focus on putting the platform for ethical AI, for example, and sandbox regulatory framework as the foundation to be able to move up the steps into data and infrastructures, as well as the talent development and research and innovation of the industry. Yeah, so all this together will try to bring Indonesia toward its vision, 100 years of Indonesia in 2045, where we are poised to be the top 10 economies in the world. Yeah, with the largest GDP among other countries that we are competing, yeah, to be one of the largest economy. Yeah, that's why this national AI strategy have a vision AI toward Indonesia to the 2045. Yeah, with these 5 priority sector: healthcare, bureaucracy reform, research and education, food security, mobility, and smart city. I think many of the speaker, Professor Toshio Fukuda, also just now we listened to Professor Akinori, have said, just like in Japan, you have super smart society. Certainly AI and big data and IoT will be a foundation for us, will be the area which we can really leverage Indonesia. Demand-driven innovation. This is what we want to be able to achieve. Yeah, at the end, when we try to implement this our national strategy. So for big data itself, the National Priority Research Program, we have conducted some organization, yeah, as a start under the Ministry of Research as part of the Priority Research Program, where we gather many of the institutions. I'm also going to ask University of Indonesia, Prof. Yudo, to participate in this collaboration, so that when we build this use case, now I will talk about use cases that I think a lot of talent, yeah, a big data talents from Indonesia. Just take an example for mitigating from tsunami and other disaster. We are talking about multi-hazard early warning system, not actually, which I will cover in the next few slides. So take example for Indonesia tsunami early warning system, where the tsunami sensors, the IoT, that's why we call this IoT big data analytics, yeah, coming from our buoy system in the vast ocean, with ocean bottom unit, where you put and place related sensors such as the pressure sensor, yeah, which will transmit the data, the reading. Also, many other data is coming from our satellite imagery data coming from our national agency, space agency, LAPAN. Also, we have many other data coming in from our cable-based tsunami meter, and every second data comes into our tsunami solution being sought for efficient data storage. Yeah, and many of these data source like tomography, buoy, cable-based tsunami meter, which is let's see. Okay, CBT cable-based tsunami meter, automatic identification system AIS, which is available, and global AIS coming into through satellites communication, and many other image from globally available is coming into our storage, and then it will be part of decision making on how you issue early warning system. So this data process and resource management has need to be carried out subsequently, and certainly it will need a lot of processing, yeah, in order for us to be able to deliver a decision making through machine learning, yeah, which will give us a predictive early warning system, so that people at the coastal area where are having a big risk and need enough time to make evacuation, this all will be integrated into a national tsunami early warning system. That is not one of our homework, actually, to be able to deliver this by the end of this year. You probably all of us have witnessed also, I have listened to Professor Anil Jain yesterday, plenary speakers, where biometric data is one of the biggest data available today. We are talking about various biometric characteristic, whether it is DNA, face, facial thermogram, hand vein fingerprint, certainly iris, yeah, signature, retina, and many other things. And for the case of biometric data in Indonesia, as we have concluded, yeah, the initiation of the program for our electronic ID, which we call eKTP, we certainly see that biometric data is something that we need to manage unconventionally, but we need to treat this data as a big data. And I think there are many applications to this biometric data. For example, what happened when we have a crash last time, where AirAsia was crashed in near Kalimantan, and the police and the search and rescue team were able to find and identify the victims of the AirAsia crash by using multi-biometric identification system. So we need to increase and expand the application of the biometric data, which has been compiled and gathered, yeah, through our electronic ID, and now being the one of the biggest data. If you think about that, more than hundreds of 200, 300 organizations are accessing this data, biometric data, through the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Director General of Citizen Dukcapil, yeah, citizen registration, civil registration, I mean. And just like Professor Yudo have mentioned, we also were able to produce one of the early solution for detecting COVID-19 as part of what we are doing now, 3T, yeah, testing, tracing, and treating. So for the case for building AI for COVID-19 detection, one of the important step is developing data mining platform, yeah, so that the AI system, the machine learning system, and the deep learning system, as well as the epidemiology support system, yeah, based on knowledge growing system, can really provide us with the tracing capability, yeah, in order for us to go hand in hand with a golden standard like PCR tests or rapid tests that we're taking. Yeah. So in doing so, we have been able to use data publicly available through IEEE, yeah, one of the source of data where we started our machine learning and deep learning from CT scan and X-ray. I think several other universities are also doing this, including University of Indonesia, and we are very keen to work together on getting the system integrated and work coherently, yeah, so that we can gather all this data, becoming a big data for COVID-19 handling in Indonesia. Yeah. And now I come to the other disaster management, where big data is also very important. And this is also is work on progress, and I'm seeking collaboration, research, so that how will big data contribute to forest fire prevention? This is the research question, actually. Yeah. How will big data contribute to forest fire mitigation? Yeah, as you know, Indonesia were affected by forest fire annually. Every year we go through this period of where and when forest fire happens in mostly in the western part of Sumatra. No, I mean western part of Indonesia. Like you will start it from Riau. Sometimes it started in Sumatra Utara. Actually, this is the period where we will have a dry season. Yeah, El Nino kicks in to Indonesia, whereas now we are observing that La Nina is coming into Indonesia. That's why you are now seeing a lot of rains, and potentially we were warned that flooding will happen in many areas in Indonesia, especially in Java. And you know, in terms of forest fire, you can see it will go from Sumatra to Java, and even though it doesn't cause you the forest fire in Java, but most potentially it is a very harmful period for our agriculture, yeah, because you will have fail harvesting of the crops, you know, because of the dry season. So in order to fight this, we have to have tools actually that can support the mitigation of forest fire prevention, especially, or in a greater cause, it is about how you limit the flooding, how you limit the forest fire, how you limit the dry season so that you can save our crop, yeah, our agriculture. So one of the things that you need to have the tools for the modification technology. Yeah, weather modification technology is a key part in order for us to do forest fire prevention and mitigation. And in order to do that, basically you will need many data source from many institutions. Yeah. For example, BMKG as weather forecaster, BNPB as a disaster management agency, and then the Ministry of Forestry and Environment is the leading sector to regulate how you can predict and then fight the forest fire by having a good strategy based on data. So that's why this application that we are now developing involves many stakeholders in creating this data, the big data, whether it is for operation, whether it is for the strategy for prevention, and then for forecasting. Yeah, for example, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry have a system, have a data where they will give you the hotspot, whereas the BPPT, my institution, provide various data from our peatland ground water level. This is the IoT sensor. In many areas, we need to increase that as well in order to get a better data, the velocity of data, and also the volume of data needs to be increased, as well as BMKG as the weather forecaster have FDRS. FDRS is fire danger rating system. Yeah, and then
another 7 minutes, sir.
Okay, and other institutions like BRG is also providing the data from the PRIMS. So in order to develop the minimum viable product for forest fire prevention, we are now at the stage where we have identified purpose, forecast capability, information provided, which is really big data, and then users. Yeah, and we are expecting that at the end we will able to have early forest fire warning system to prevent fire risk in each province using machine learning. Yeah, and in doing so, we follow the rule of thumb of data science, where you identify data source, data analysis, hypothesis validation, and then certainly at the end we need to build the machine learning model that can take data from BMKG, for example, historical weather from ECMWF, hotspot information from the Ministry of Forestry, as well as the peatland monitoring from BRG, the Badan Restorasi Gambut, peatland restoration agency, and many other, so that we can predict all the groundwater level. So these are some showcase that I want to share with you, and I want to ask your hand actually to participate in such endeavor to build up the big data for us. Velocity, volume, and variety. We need to handle various format. We need to extract actually all this data so that it can link together. I think I will end my presentation as have been warned by Professor Yudo. We've remembered that we have One Data Indonesia, and we certainly have the urgency to define and plan our data benefits, so that we, in order for us to implement this presidential regulation on Satu Data Indonesia or One Data Indonesia, we certainly have to have close coordination. We need to collaborate and build up the engine of growth for the big data in Indonesia. I think most of you can find this very challenging, and certainly I want you to take away things that is very important: data science, data engineering, big data, artificial, are the fields that are extremely needed to process data into gold. We don't want to say into oil, even though some people say data is the new oil. But you know that we are talking about renewable energy. So let's leave behind the fossil fuel. So let's just change this data into gold, which is really precious for all of us. See you again. I want you to ask all your participation in the next AI Summit 2020, which will also host Professor Toshio Fukuda. And also, we are also going to see again Professor Anil Jain as the keynote speaker, among others. We also have confirmed speaker from Facebook, Jan Leken, which is the Turing Award laureates, this will be very interesting. And certainly you are welcome to participate, whether you want to submit a poster. And also for all startup, please join us in the virtual expo. It's really an invitation to all of you, the new generation of big data in Indonesia. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamam. Applause for Dr. Hamam from the audience. Okay, now there are 8 questions so far, mostly from the Defense University. So thank you to all students from the Admiral Octavian as director of the Defense University. But I will just pick some of them so we can finish on time at 15:30. The first question is actually from Hendra Wulan about the implementation of big data in supporting national defense and the threats that might result from big data. And for the question number 2 from Agung M. Utomo, I'm sure that Dr. Hamam has explained a lot about the contribution of the BPPT for the disaster in Indonesia, so I don't think we should answer this question again. For the third question is about the position of social media, which is very influential in public opinion and the decision-making of leaders in Indonesia. And then the third one is actually, what are the opportunities and challenges regarding how diplomacy is carried out in the digital era? So how ICT is used effectively in diplomacy towards progress and mutual prosperity. 3 questions first, and then if we still have time, then we can continue with the second round.
Okay, thank you. So I will ask. I will try to first answer the question from Pak Pahan about the social media. I think social media is the mainstream, yeah, of how you interact with each other right now. Yeah, so this is actually digital transformation on social connection, yeah, social communication, and a lot of this data which I show you in my slide is basically produced from social media. So the question is, where is the position of social media in the decision making of leaders in Indonesia? This is actually, in reality, is an operation that are conducted by many leaders from various organizations. Opinion mining is technology, yeah, where you actually mine the opinion in the media, social media, to become part of the consideration in making decision. So social media is really mainstream, I think, in many of the organization. Even more, it will be very influential for us, yeah, which takes part in becoming the content producer of the social media. So that's the first question. For the same thing will be in supporting national defense and trades. I think we cannot get away, I will say, from embarking in developing big data for national resiliency. Ya, untuk ketahanan nasional pasti kita memerlukan big data. Di situ ada segala macam data, baik itu data intelligence, you will use intelligence data, you will use report, you use the statistic, and many other in order for us to have a better defense strategy. Especially we are fighting the asymmetric warfare, yeah, where actually information warfare is part of the national defense. Yeah, and the third one, I think, Professor Yudo, you mentioned about the question from
diplomacy, about diplomacy.
Diplomacy, I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, big data. Well, actually, big data means that you have so much data that the conventional database technology that we know, like I started to learn about data when I was young. I still have hairs, I think, at that time, and I start with relational database, right? But that kind of technology is already actually diminishing, yeah, and it is replaced by the new technology from big data, where you take account in the volume, velocity, the variety, and the veracity as part of how you organize and make data become knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hamam. Since we still have 12 minutes left, we can continue to the next question from Nizam Safaras, also from Indonesia Defense University. 2 questions from him. The first one is about the transfer of technology. Is there any transfer of technology from foreign countries, since probably we need resources from other countries to build the industry? And then the second question from him is about, do we have the vision about the capable human resources? How exactly are we going to implement this? Does BPPT will have several programs to educate our engineer to achieve the standard of capable human resources?
Okay, thank you. I will try to answer to answer the question. This is really interesting question, and I think it is really a question as well as a challenge for us about innovation. Innovation, in our perspective, comes from research and development. Yeah, from research development, where you do engineering, you do scientific discovery, and you do research, and from here you need to take this into, in our perspective, technology clearing, where you actually try to see whether this technology is adaptable to a certain condition. That's why in our work in BPPT, we talk about whether this technology is the right technology, teknologi tepat guna. Yeah. And the other thing is that we need to see whether this technology will be able to be adopted by our local industry, so that we can deliver a product using this technology with the TKDN, the rate of local content. Yeah, and from there you go to transfer of technology, where actually this technology is transferred to the industry or to the startup. Yeah, so that at the end, when you do the diffusion of this technology and commercialization of technology, you will be able to have a sustainable product from this technology. So if we talk about big data, whether this technology can be something that a startup company will take advantage of, and then being able to scale up the product. Yeah, take example, how you improve the healthcare by applying big data technology. So this is called innovation. The whole chain of value from research development up to commercialization, that means innovation for us. And the resource from other country can be part of this innovation. Why? Because we also believe in reverse engineering. Yeah. This is how you actually leapfrog in order for you to be competitive with the other nation. So we can bring up this product using our own resources. And the second question, capable human resource, how we are going to implement this. This is certainly the national program to bring the capable human resource into our national development. So it is, I think, mandatory for all of us to be part of the human resource that will contribute to the national development. How you do it is that by giving your creativity and innovation, by doing education and research, then we will be able to spring up a capable human resource. And I think we as a young new generation of knowledgeable worker, educated people will want to take this opportunity to be part of the national development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hamam. Next question from Andina. The role of big data to encourage small and medium enterprise. I'm sure you have lots of things to say about this.
Oh, so this is really a challenge to do the question. Yeah, I think you really take the the current, if you know, UMKM, the small medium enterprise, is really the core of our national development. We are not talking only big companies or for our economic development, the engine of growth. The engine of growth for Indonesia comes from the small medium enterprise. Certainly, the small and medium enterprise, in order for you to become competitive, having resiliency and persistence, also have, I will say, sovereignty. You need to really take big data seriously. Just any other industry 4.0 technology like IoT, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence, small medium enterprise has to embark in a journey to make digital transformation happens in all aspects of your business. In order for you to compete with other small medium enterprise and becoming a scale up industry, yeah, sustainable industry, then you need to take advantage of the development of many technology, including big data. It will help you to make the product better. It will make you to make a cheaper product. It will make you to make a more innovative product, and also to market your product. So I think it's not really a lip service of the president to say that we are mainstreaming digital transformation in the country, so that we can really participate in the digital economy. Thank you.
Okay, 5 minutes left, so we can still have 1 or 2 questions. Next one is actually from Asral Effendi. Dear Dr. Hamam Riza, what stimulus from the government that encourage R&D and industry in this field to develop properly?
Okay, yes. Again, thank you for the question. I want to also probably announce to all of you that the Ministry of Finance has just released a new law, a new regulation, and I think Professor Yudo and many other people also know about this new law. It's about super tax deduction, super tax deduction, where this is really an incentive for many people doing research and development, many people doing research and development to be able to get incentive by reducing the tax rate that a company invests in R&D. So take, for example, if I am a startup, I have a startup company working on natural language processing, speech recognition, for example. I can invest 100 million in this startup, and by the end of the year, after I follow through with a certain procedure and guidelines from the Ministry of Research and Technology, my tax can be cut up to 300 million because of this investment made in R&D. So in this case, the millennial, the new generation, trying to put investment in R&D for a new startup will be able, to take the benefit of R&D, so that you can produce a better. Each product, if we want to be a global brand for this product, for example, the big data product that produced by a young generation, by university student from Unhan or from UI and many other university, can be part of a new startup company. And if we want to take this product into a global brand, you will go into the debt valley, where you actually need investment to get away from this debt valley of innovation. You risk the technology, you risk the market, and you risk financially. So that's why the government now introduced this new law in order for you to build the bridge so that you can pass the valley of death of innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamam Riza, for joining us as the keynote speaker in the IWBIS 2020. Let's give applause to Dr. Hamam Riza. Since it's already 15:29, so I will pass it back to our great master of ceremony, Dr. The Fifth Son in English, or Pancaputra in Indonesia. To Pancaputra. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Professor Yudo. Thank you.